Okay, 8.1 ratios. Everybody should be on page 369 to 370. Page 369. Ratios. Okay, now in example one, we're learning about writing ratios. And notice that what I wrote next to example one. It says writing ratios in 3 different ways. Okay, so there are several ways that I can show a relationship between 2 numbers. That's what a ratio is. It's a relationship between 2 numbers. All right, now, example 1 gives us the illustration of baseball spring training. And they give us 3 teams here, and you'll see that in the chart on the top of page 369. The Padres, the Dodgers, and the Cubs. And they list off their wins to losses. The Padres have 16 wins and 11 losses. Dodgers, 18 wins, 13 losses. And the Cubs have 17 wins and 14 losses. It wants us to write, okay, and we're going to use the Cubs first. Okay, we're going to use the Cubs first. Let's write a ratio for wins to losses. So, how many wins do they have? They had 17 wins and 14 losses. So I can write that one of 3 ways. I can write it as a comparison using a semicolon, 17 to 14. I can write it 17 to 14, TO. Or I can write it as a fraction, 17 to 14. And when I write it as a fraction, I always want to write it, the first number goes in the numerator and the second number that's being compared goes in my denominator. Now, this is the very first part of your homework tonight. It's going to ask you to write the ratio in 3 different ways, and this is how you do it. But now it wants us to write a ratio for wins to games played. So we know clearly that there are 17 wins, but now we do have to do a little bit of addition here. All right, well, total games played would include their wins and losses, so 17 plus 14 is 31. So it's going to be 17 wins to 31 games played. Or I could write it 17 to 31 or 17 to 31. Any one of those 3 ways. Writing ratios 3 different ways. This is how you do it. So you take any numbers, okay, and if I say write a ratio for these numbers, this is how you would do it. Now in example 2, we're writing ratios as a fraction in simplest form. Well, letter A is kind of nice because it's already a fraction. So I just have to figure out how can I write this in simplest form. Now remember, this is kind of going back a couple chapters, but how can I reduce a fraction? I must divide top and bottom by the same number. It has to be divisible by the same number. So I can divide top and bottom by 3, and no, you do not have to show this step. I'm just showing it just basically to show the process. 12 divided by 3 is 4. 15 divided by 3 is 5, 4/5. So you're basically just reducing fractions, but they're ratios, all right? Now, on letter B, it says 9 to 5. Now, remember what I said. The first number goes on top of the fraction. The second number goes on the bottom. 9 to 5. When we're writing ratios, we can leave them improper. So I can just leave it 9 to 5, all right? And that can be my answer. So that would be my answer just like that, just writing it as a fraction. And then 32 to 48, again, I'm writing it as a fraction. My first number goes on top, 32. My second number goes on bottom, 48. 32 over 48, I know that I can reduce that. I'm going to divide top and bottom. Now, if you can't figure out the biggest number, okay, Your greatest common factor, you can just divide by, we know that they both have 8 as a factor. You could just divide by 8. The largest number is 16, but if, again, just start somewhere. So divide top and bottom by 8, and you get 4 over 6. And then, obviously, you can reduce that again, and you can get 2/3. Okay? Writing ratios as fractions in simplest form. This is just like your homework, numbers 16 through 22 tonight. Numbers 16 through 22. And notice, too, that I did make a small change to your homework. It's 2 through 22 even, not 2 through 26 even. All right? Now, last but not least, example 3, comparing ratios. So now, we're going to write the ratios in simplest, actually we're just going to, we don't even have to write them in simplest form, all right? We can use our calculators. That makes it a lot easier, right? Now, if you don't have your calculator, you're going to have to do a little bit of work. But we are going to write these ratios as fractions, and then we're going to convert them to decimals. So, how do I write 18 to 12 as a ratio? 18 over 12. How do I write 54 to 36 as a fraction? 54 over 36. Now, get out your calculators. And let's divide. 18. Remember, we always divide top by bottom. 18 divided by 12 is 1.5. And 54 divided by 36 is 1.5. So, in comparison, does a less than, greater than, or equal sign belong in my blank?
Equal.
Equal to. And that would be my answer. Okay? So write them as a fraction, and then convert them to a decimal using your calculators, and tell me, is it less than, greater than, or equal to?
So you're just putting it as a fraction and then dividing
Yes.
top by bottom.
Yep. In your calculator. Yeah, and that's all you need to know for 8.1.